Hello and welcome to more haunted theme parks. After looking over my list of video ideas a few weeks ago, I realized I really need to make something about ghosts. Today we are returning to the places that are supposed to be fun, but come to find out they house a dark mystery. So, I hope you kept your wristbands or tickets from the last video where we visited these types of places, because we are journeying to these parks, not to ride the rides, but rather to uncover what scary things hide in the shadows. Let's start our journey with one of the most famous haunted places out there, and that would be the Lake Shawnee amusement park in Rock, West Virginia. Originally, the land that this park sits on was owned by a man named Mitchell Clay when he settled in the area in 1775. Interestingly, Mitchell and his family are actually known as the first white settlers in the county of Mercer. After living in the area for 8 years, the Clay family had developed a feud with the indigenous Shawnee tribe. This all came to a tragic head when one day in August, Mitchell was hunting, and when he returned home, he found that the tribe had attacked his farm. He found that his son Bartley and daughter Tabitha had been killed, and his other son named Ezekiel was missing. This did not end well either, since his body was later found burnt at a stake. Mitchell vowed revenge, gathered up a group of other settlers, and killed quite a few members of the tribe. After this, the property was said to be cursed, but it remained silent until 1926. At this time, a man named Conley T. Snidow purchased the land with the intent of building a theme park. After this purchase, a pond was built, a swimming pool, a dance hall, a speakeasy, and of course a Ferris wheel, swing ride, and other such activities. Not long after opening, tragedy hit when a young boy drowned when he wandered from his parents and fell into the pond. Then, a few years later, another boy died who was 9 years old when for some reason he got his arm caught in the drain at the bottom of the pool. After this, the pool was filled with cement to try to prevent more deaths. 3 more various deaths would occur, of which I can't find any details of, which is really odd. However, the final one happened in 1966 when a young girl was enjoying her time on the swings when a careless truck driver delivering drinks to the park accidentally struck the girl while she was still on the swings. Apparently the driver was backing up to turn around and rammed right into the swings. All these accidents proved too much, and the park shut its doors that same year. While sitting dormant, many of the rides were sold off or were simply left to rot. This is where a former employee named Gaylord White would step in and try to revive the park in 1985. Before reopening, White decided to purchase another Ferris wheel, as well as a swing ride. He did this by buying them from other parks. What is odd is that he found a swing and it was for sale in New Jersey, so he bought it and set it up at the park. When the family checked the serial number of the ride, they eerily found out that it was actually the same one that had originally been there. The park reopened in 1987, but only lasted for 3 years until insurance premiums became too expensive. Not to mention that in the early 1990s, the family were digging in the mud in the pond when they found Native American artifacts. They brought in researchers from Marshall University and were shocked when they started to uncover human bones. Here the whole time the park had been sitting on a Native American burial ground. Makes sense why the Shawnee tribe was so angry at the original owner, Mitchell Clay. Most of the bones discovered were those of children, and it was estimated that there were over 3,000 bodies that could be under the soil. Obviously, with this discovery, the park was closed permanently. However, many of the rides still stand as decaying shells of what they once were. Not to mention that the White family still do put on personal walkthroughs and even host an event around Halloween called the Dark Carnival Lake Nightmare. I know I went through a lot of history here, but I think it all plays a part, and it really seems relevant to the topic. Now, with all that information said, the hauntings are off the charts at this location. Many who visit the area claim that at night you can hear the sounds of Native American drums and chants echoing through the property. At other times, the sounds of laughter and people walking up and down the roads can be heard, even though no one is there. Many spirits have been seen sitting in the cars of the dilapidated Ferris wheel, apparently not realizing that it is no longer in working order. Probably the most infamous and sad specter said to roam about the property is that of the young girl who was killed in the swings. Many who see her claim that she is wearing a white ruffled dress, and sometimes her clothes are even covered in blood. This girl can more frequently be seen sitting on one of the swings, and sometimes she may be invisible, and the only thing you see is the swing rocking back and forth. What is interesting is that the family really don't like to share their encounters, but apparently, when he was alive, Gaylord had a run-in with the little girl as well. Every time he was driving his tractor, he kept feeling a weight on his shoulders. Finally, one day he got the nerve to look back, and there he saw the little girl in a white ruffled dress standing there. He stopped and told her that if she liked the tractor so much, then he was going to give it to her. To this day, the tractor still sits where he left it for her. Ghosts of guests are one thing, but apparently the owners also reside there after they pass on. Both Gaylord and his son both passed away, leaving his wife Jewel in charge. While taking pictures in an old van that her son used to work on, she claims to have captured images of him. Jewel also says that there is video from a security camera that shows one of the safety bars on a car in the Ferris wheel unlatching itself. In her eyes, this is her husband's ghost, since he was always worried about the locks on that ride. It is worth mentioning that many mediums and investigators do refuse to stay overnight at this location. This is probably a good thing, since one unlucky investigator from the Discovery Channel walked into a ticket booth and found that something was holding the door shut. What is odd is that the door doesn't have a lock, and it is simply a push to open. She pushed with all her might, but it wouldn't budge. Finally, whatever was causing the mischief let go, and she was finally able to escape. We are now going to visit not just one location, but actually 4. While this may seem confusing, let me just say that apparently Six Flags seems to be a paranormal hotspot. Starting off, let's look at the one in New Orleans. Originally, this site was known as Jazzland from 2000 to 2002, but it quickly went up for sale and was purchased by Six Flags. While it was a popular site, all would not go well, since on the day before the park was to reopen for the season, Hurricane Katrina hit on August 26, 2005. As many of you are aware, this natural disaster decimated much of the southern coastal states and caused massive floods. Originally there were plans to reopen, but it ultimately was considered a total loss. Since that time, many plans were set forth to reinvent the park, including a Nickelodeon-themed venue, but all of them fell through. To this day, everything sits as a reminder of what it once was. While the land is abandoned, some people have ventured into the park to explore it. What they didn't realize is that some of the guests have yet to realize the park is closed. Many have reported the sounds of metal banging around and the distinct echoes of machinery running. In some cases, the sounds of laughter and music can still be heard. What is always present is the feeling that someone or something is watching you from the shadows. Something really odd is that one explorer has noted that on occasion, lights can be seen blinking on or flickering in parts of the park at night. What makes this really fantastic is the fact that there isn't any power running to the park. Moving on to Six Flags over Texas. A real estate developer named Angus J. Wynn, Jr. visited Disneyland in 1959 and decided that he needed to build a similar park in his state of Texas. Construction of the very first Six Flags started in August of 1960 in Arlington, and it was officially opened to the public on August 5, 1961. Unlike the other parks we have talked about, this one is still going strong to this day. Through the years, there have been a few accidents at the park, and some have been fatal. Remarkably, since its construction, there have only been 4 people that have died. While any death isn't good, 4 in almost 60 years, with so many guests and moving machinery, it is quite impressive. You probably don't want to know how many have died at Disneyland or Disney World. As a side note, if you're curious, like I was, 14 at Disney World, and Disneyland simply gives the disclaimer that technically, someone isn't dead unless a medical professional declares them as such. Anyway, this location has quite a fair share of paranormal activity. Many guests have claimed that they have encountered cold spots or the feeling like someone or something unseen was touching them. A ghost simply known as Angus has been seen in the park since the 1980s, although his attire suggests he is from an earlier time period. He is said to appear as an old man with white hair, a gray beard, and is dressed in overalls. Stories claim that in life he was a worker who fell to his death while building the Palace Theater. As such, his apparition has been spotted standing on the stage. In one story, a worker was closing things down for the night and found the popcorn maker had been turned on and was starting a fresh batch of popcorn. Most people who have seen him say he appears, and the moment you look at him, he vanishes. Actors who are preparing for a show have heard doors slamming and seen lights being turned on and off by themselves. With that said, there is possibly another more famous ghost who is called Annie. I couldn't find a description of her other than she appears to be 8 years old and is dressed in early 1900s garments. Many believe that she is the spirit of a girl who drowned in Johnson's Creek. Now, she spends her days walking along the railroad in the park and tends to visit many other locations. She has been seen in the mine train ride, but really seems to enjoy living in a yellow house that was originally a farmhouse and placed on the property. With all that said, her most favorite place is the candy shop near the Texas Giant. It is at this location that people have reported the lights will turn on and off by themselves, the front door will continually unlock itself, and the decorative curtains will begin to be pulled open, with some workers actually seeing it being done. All this activity is claimed to be the work of Annie. With her spirit, most people feel that she is simply being playful and doesn't mean anyone harm. The next location is Six Flags Magic Mountain, and it is located in Valencia, California. The park officially opened on May 29, 1971, under the name Magic Mountain, and was partially owned by SeaWorld. Then in 1979, Six Flags bought the property and largely kept the name, but added Six Flags to it. There isn't too much history, other than it being home to many roller coasters. But you are here for the ghosts. At first glance, this park doesn't seem to have too many, but there are quite a few in the shadows. One of the park's most famous spectral visitors is a boy that is seen wearing a striped shirt, and he appears to have blood on it. He tends to enjoy hanging around the Colossus roller coaster, and more directly, under the structure. It is said that he has been seen screaming the moment the ride starts, but oddly enough, when the park is closed, night guards have reported hearing the chains moving on that ride, even though it is turned off. Some have even speculated that this boy is actually making the sounds himself. A young woman is said to haunt the Goliath roller coaster, and according to the story, she originally died from a brain aneurysm in June of 2001. With this spirit, she tends to enjoy using the ride's phone to call the guards at night. When they pick up, the only sound they ever hear is static. Apparently, another boy tends to haunt the basketball game. After hours, workers have put all the balls away, and when they come back, they find one under the net. When they go to retrieve it, they can see a child's arm coming out and trying to snatch it away. This same entity has been seen by security guards on many occasions. One night, a guard saw a boy and yelled at him that the park was closed. When the boy didn't respond, he walked up to him and squatted down to talk to the child. Just as he was about to start talking to the boy, he vanished into thin air. Another worker claims that a spirit makes its rounds near the Jetstream ride. One night he was waiting for his replacement when he heard footsteps coming towards him on the catwalk. With wanting to leave, the worker stood up to meet his replacement and even saw the shadow of a person coming to him. Just as the two were about to meet, the shadow vanished and the footsteps stopped. Finally, his replacement did come, but he claims as he was walking out, he could hear the footsteps following him. Our final location is the one found in Jackson, New Jersey, and it is named Six Flags Great Adventure. A businessman named Warner Leroy decided in 1972 to build a theme park that was quite spectacular and grandeur, with 7 parks built into one. He called this park the Great Adventure, and it opened its doors to the public on July 1st, 1974. The park did well, but it was sold to Six Flags in 1977. To date, a surprising fact is that this park is considered the second largest theme park in the world, trailing only to Disney's Animal Kingdom. Yes, I know, ghosts. Probably the most well-known spirits haunting the park come from the tragedy that happened in the 80s. On May 11th, 1984, a fire broke out at the haunted castle and 8 teenagers perished. This happened due to a light going out and one of the boys lighting a cigarette lighter to see where they were going. Sadly, the flame caught some foam padding on fire and the whole place became engulfed quickly due to all the structure being highly flammable. As macabre as it may sound, the park remained open and stories claim that not all the bones were recovered, and the remains were still being removed mere moments before the guests were about to be let in. While this attraction no longer exists, many have claimed to see the spirits of those teenagers hanging around the area where the fire occurred. In most descriptions they appear to be just another guest, but they are obviously dressed in 80s style clothes, and they disappear the moment you look away. This is the most famous story, but what many don't know is that there are other sightings as well. There is a ghost that is frequently seen hanging around the Batman roller coaster, and many guards have seen this person thinking it was a guest staying after hours. Many believe this to be the ghost of a woman named Karen Brown. In life she died while riding on the ride called the Lightning Loops, and it was later replaced with the Batman one. Many guests and guards claim that she will actually violently shake the walls of the ride, even when the park is closed. Apparently, her activity has become so prominent that many employees avoid the area or choose to run through that part of the park when they are leaving. One of this ghost's favorite activities is to move the bumper cars, which is near the Batman ride. Also, many have reported hearing an odd clicking noise coming from the bumper car area, and the longer you listen to it, the louder it gets. Some have said that the click almost resembles the intercom being clicked on and off rapidly. It is said that the clicks wouldn't have a pattern, but would sometimes click a few times with long spaces in between, while at other times it would make the sound quickly. These events would all be tied with seeing the shadow of a person in that area. Finishing up our journey, we are visiting a park that I have personally visited, and it is fairly close to home. That would be Kennywood in West Mifflin, PA. Kennywood has a fairly interesting history, since it was built on land leased from a man named Thomas Jenkins Kenny in 1898. Originally it started out as a trolley park, but as time went on, more and more rides were constructed. However, previously to Mr. Kenny's purchase of the land for the price of £5, 10 shillings, 6 pence and a barrel of whiskey, this land was involved in a bloody battle in the 7 Years' War. So we all know how often spirits tend to show up on lands where battles happened. Although, this might not be the case here. I was given a story by one of my viewers by the name of Guy15, so thank you for this. According to him, his cousin worked as an operator for the ride called The Exterminator. This ride is an indoor roller coaster with the theme of it being rat infested. While you're on it, you can see many animatronics dressed in protective suits trying their best to fight back the rodents. Anyway, while working at the ride, she kept having guests come up to her and saying that they really liked the inclusion of the actor who appeared as a ghost by the tracks, many of which likened it to that of a mannequin dressed like a ghost. This was really confusing to the operator, since a feature like this wasn't part of the ride. As mentioned, all actors inside were dressed in full protective suits. After checking out the ride, the ghost was never found. I mentioned that ghosts normally show up on battlefield areas, but maybe not in this case. Well, the reason I say this is due to only being able to find this one story. Maybe there are more out there, but they are evading my eyes. This is surprising, since many of you know, this doesn't happen too often to me. Wow, this is probably my longest video yet, but I hope you enjoyed it. I honestly never planned on having so many Six Flags stories, but I felt I had to talk about them all in one segment. Also, it is really strange that in our first story, the same swing ride came back to the park. Almost like it wanted to be there. What are your thoughts on this? I hope you had fun. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my videos with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.